Welcome to Ludwig Life. This is a short series of webisodes that I am going to produce unscripted in order to introduce myself to the world. You see, I've written a book. It's my first book. It's self-published on Kindle. It's called A Viakov's Tale. And though I'm not looking to get rich off of writing a book, I would really like people to read it. I want to share it with the world. I think it's a unique vision, an idea of fantasy, and I really want to share that with the world. For my whole life, I've been kind of obsessed with all things fantasy. I've read a lot of fantasy books. I have a degree in illustration in which I tried to break into the fantasy illustration field. Didn't have much luck with that, if you can't tell. But yeah, so like I said, I think that this book is a different kind of story, it's a different kind of fantasy, and that's why I wanted to write it. As over my life, I've read a lot of different fantasy books, and I've been inspired by all of them for different reasons. I started reading fantasy very young. I read the classical series of the modern fantasy, which is Margaret Wise and Tracy Hickman's Dragonlance series and R.A. Salvatore's Dark Elf series, and then on to Terry Brooks and David Eddings, which was especially influential to me. And then on, of course, to George R. R. Martin and Robert Jordan and a bunch of others as well. And I liked all of them. I was just taken back by all of them and inspired by all of them, but I wanted to produce a different kind of fantasy and show it to the world, basically. So in A Viakov's Tale, I decided to write it specifically from the point of view of the main character, Abnern. That's not in first person, and it is narrated. It's not really narrated by a specific character. It's kind of an omnipotent kind of narration, but the readers only know what Abnern knows. They are only aware of the things that Abnern is aware of. So the only thing that he knows is what he sees, hears, and smells, and what other people actually speak and show to him. So I thought this was kind of a unique way to go, and I hope that you feel that way too. Another reason why it's different, I want it to be very gritty, and what I mean by that is not an especially violent or especially cold kind of detail-oriented book. I meant by gritty, very realistic. I make sure to point out very mundane things in the main character's life and how the main character feels about them. But because this is a fantasy setting, I can use the fantasy themes and details to make those mundane things, of course, not so mundane, otherwise no one would want to read about them. So as a result, you've got this main character who you come to know intimately, and you come to know his thoughts and his feelings about what's happening around him in his life. Rather than in other books with the traditional kind of approach to fantasy, which is the reader knows all kinds of things that the main characters don't know, and they're aware of all kinds of characters and all kinds of subplots and things like this that the main characters don't know. I suppose what I'm trying to achieve by this is that I want the reader to journey with the main character and learn about the world that he lives in as he does, because it is a new world, entirely new world. It's called Nith, and Nith is a world in which everyone in the world is an anthropomorphic being. What I mean by that, sorry, the security thing keeps popping up. I hate pop-ups. What I mean by that is all of the races are animal people. I know what you might be thinking immediately. Animal people sounds funny. It sounds cute. It sounds Disney or whatever, but I wanted this world to be entirely different, so I populated with animal people. Now these races, they have developed over time, and are completely unique in themselves. I suppose any writer would say that about the races in his world. But what I mean is that the races do not reflect the animals of their ancestry. Um, Such as Abnern. The main character is what we call a Viakov. That's where the title of the book comes from, a Viakov's tale. This is Abnern's tale, basically. Viakovs are black bear people. Okay, so the black bear people have their own very rich culture. I think you're going to be surprised how non-bear-like it is. I mean, they are bear people, but they don't, their culture is not centered around gathering honey, for instance, or um, hibernating, for instance, or anything like that. So what I mean is that these cultures do not directly reflect the animals of their ancestry, as one might think. This story could easily be about humans. It could easily be about any other kind of fantasy-based race, but I wanted to make it new by making them animal people and adding themes and things to the story along those lines that would create just a completely new, rich, visceral kind of world, which I really hope you will enjoy, and that I will get the kind of moral support, to be quite honest, that I need to keep writing these books for you, because I have a lot of stories in my head that can take place in this world, and others too, but I really want to write in Nith, where Abnern lives. So that's the reason behind these webisodes. They're unscripted, they're candid. I want you to get to know me, so that maybe you'll pick up the book and give it a read, as even just as an oddity. Here's a guy talking about his book, and hey, it sounds a little different and interesting. Why not give it a quick read? It's available on Amazon.com. A Viakov's Tale by Jason Ludwig. It's available for your e-reader, so you can do it on your iPad, your iPhone, your Droid, whatever you can get a free Kindle app on, including, of course, the Kindle e-readers. So another thing I'm going to do with these webisodes, I'm going to talk about unrelated things, things unrelated to the book, just to let you have a little insight into my life. I'm going to talk about cigars a lot. I know it's kind of surprising from left field, I know, but I love cigars. It's my only vice. I tend to say that. I don't really think that it's necessary that I tell that to people, that it's my only vice, but it is. I don't drink. I've never done drugs in my life, never touched them. And I went to art school, so that says something, right? So, cigars. I love them. I smoke between 1 and 3 a day, probably too much. I usually order them online from Cigars International, which is the only way anybody like me can afford that. I live with my family pretty much paycheck to paycheck, like most of you probably do. So smoking a nice premium cigar for between $8 and $12 is not really feasible. So I order them online from Cigars International for between $3 and $5 a piece, and that is feasible. So I started smoking when I was 18 years old, and it took me years to really understand what I was doing and what cigars are all about. And I'm just so enamored with them, and I could talk forever about them, that I like to share that with you, because I really think that people out there have the wrong idea about them. They're as complex as wine, as coffee, as craft beers, as chocolate. And by the way, all those things I just mentioned, great companions for cigar smoking, especially coffee and chocolate, which just go great with a great cigar. So this week I would like to endorse this cigar here, which I've just received a box of. I ordered them last week. This is a CAO Maduro box press. CAO is a great, great company. It's one of my favorite companies. I'll tell you why. There's a lot of cigars out there, a lot, way too many to try them all, basically. But of the ones that I've tried, CAO have a number of things that are just really consistent, and that's what you want. If you pick up a cigar and you like it, You have to be able to rely on that company to make their cigars consistently so that you know you pick up the next cigar of that brand and that type, and you'll like that one just as much. CAO is the best example I can give of that kind of a company. The construction is fantastic. What do I mean by construction? Well, the way that this cigar is made is perfect. What that means is that when you draw or suck the air through the cigar as you smoke it, it's a perfect draw. It's an easy passage of smoke from the lit end to the cut end into your mouth. And that, believe it or not, is really, really important. I mean, if you get a cigar that's plugged, as cigar smokers say, meaning that there is like a stem or a leaf or something in the cigar somewhere, and it obstructs the flow of air, you basically have to mangle that cigar to get it to smoke right. And depending upon how much money you spent on that cigar, it can be quite frustrating. You know, imagine if every bottle of wine you picked up, there was like a 30% chance every time of there being something inherently wrong with that bottle of wine and you can't drink it. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. So CAO cigars, fantastic construction. The way that it's built, with the three different kinds of leaf, just perfect. What that does is it lends for a perfect burn as well. It burns slow and evenly. When you smoke a cigar, okay, it burns from the end here down towards the cut end, obviously, but what's left behind is the ash. That's the stuff that's been burnt and produced the smoke that gets into your mouth, which you exhale, of course, you don't inhale. That ash on a CAO cigar is always tight, consistent in color, and very firm. That means it's not going to fall off and burn your leg, or go out easily. You can put a CAO cigar down for a few minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes sometimes, if it's not too windy out, and pick it back up and not have to light it again. That's really important. Another thing that's great about CAO cigars is they have a lot of different varieties, of course, like many cigar companies, but CAO cigars have what I like to call a very clean taste. Meaning that this cigar tastes to me like it has hints of espresso, dark bitter chocolate, and a little charcoal. Okay? Now, those are all very distinct tastes. And when I smoke this, I taste that every time. Of course, the tobacco taste is overwhelming, but what you look for in cigars is those nuances, just like you would in wine or coffee or chocolate, like I mentioned. But with a CAO cigar, those tastes are distinct and clean, not muddy. The sign of a shabby cigar is if when you smoke it, you can't really tell the person across from you what it's like. And then I invariably have to say, well, it's a kind of muddy cigar. I can't really pick anything out of it. It tastes like tobacco. That's about it. I guess it's an okay cigar, but it's certainly not very good. So CAOs do not disappoint, and CAO Maduros, no exception in that. So thank you very much for joining me. I'll be making more of these. They will continue to be completely random and unscripted. I will talk about the book every time, and hopefully I see some comments by you. Questions about the book, questions about cigars, questions about me. I will do my best to address them in the next episode. So have a great night, and this has been Ludwig Life.